kinds of really great events. We're going to be doing events in the alley as well. We've got one coming up with Michelle T. and Sister Spit.
Yay.
Also, Alejandro Mugia and our poet laureate is going to be curating an event out there. There's going to be a spotlight poetry event with Garrett Caples and a lot of city arts poets. So a lot of really great stuff. I encourage you to please check out our website and the calendar. And we also have a hard copy downstairs that you can pick up at the front. So, always a pleasure to be kind of co-producing with Laborfest this year. I think we've been doing it for more than 10 years, haven't we, guys? It's been quite a while. I've lost track. I mean, it just seems like we were doing it 5 minutes ago. So it's always a delight to be part of Laborfest. We love what they're doing, and I encourage you all to please pick up a booklet, which is a calendar of all the other events that are happening. They're happening all over town. It's a really wonderful, really great program. So tonight we are celebrating the life and the poetry of somebody very, very special, a North Beach denizen, and someone who was like kind of tireless labor and peace activist and worked with homelessness advocacy groups, with Food Not Bombs. Also was on the Laborfest committee for our friend Alice Rogoff, who's here with us tonight on behalf of Laborfest. Carol Tarlin was actually there before Alice, working on Laborfest, and then turned it over to Alice, who came to us and began doing stuff here at City Lights, and it's been just a joy ever since. Carol has been this really incredible presence on the scene, and you know, having her pass on was a great loss. But we have a new collection of poetry now. It's called Every Day is an Act of Resistance, which is published by Mongol Empire Press, and it's edited by David Joseph, who is here with us tonight, and Julia Stein, who sadly could not make it. They are joined by Aggie Falk, Jack Hirschman, who is actually going to be emceeing the night for Julia. Of course, David Joseph is with us, Sarah Menifee, Leslie Simon, and of course Alice has a piece to read. I'm going to have Alice come up and say a few words about Laborfest and also read a piece, and then I'll have Jack Hirschman. So here is Alice Rogoff.
I think I'm just going to introduce Laborfest right now, and the Laborfest is an annual labor, cultural, and history festival. It's always in July to commemorate the general strike and Bloody Thursday for the ILWU. And it's also a very varied festival. We have pieces about the Wobblies and sexual workers, and just a variety of different kinds of unions. And we have many programs about immigration and the Brasquero programs. There's a book fair and a boat ride, which is really great, where you get labor history. And we have quite a bit of cultural work like theater and poetry. And so I hope you enjoyed this poetry reading. And I was very happy to suggest to Peter that we have a reading for Carol Tarlin's book because she lived in North Beach. And I just thought it was appropriate to have this at City Lights.
My name is Jack Hirschman, and I was asked to, by Julia Stein, who's ill and couldn't come here. She would have taken the role in MC, but she asked me to do that one. But I want to get everyone settled here. We have seats here. Please come in. There's seats down here. You want to sit and be comfortable. There's one here and two here, okay? I'm going to be introducing the poets who will read a poem, or if they want, maybe another poem of Carol, and then maybe if they've written something about Carol, read that too, okay? First, I think he's going to read a bit something else, but Carol's consort, partner, for many years, is a poet himself, and just before I introduce David, I want to just say, this is a celebration of a woman who was fully in identification with the energies, the goals of the working class in this society. That's what she held to in everything she did, including her work as a writer. She had a magazine for short story work. She worked with what turns out to be the collective that created in the 80s the most important international translation magazine of poetry, Con Pages. She was one of the folks who brought the translations in and who talked about them and their quality before they went to print. And she was in everything she did. Someone who was, if there was someone who was carrying a flag, she'd have carried the flag of the hammer and sickle, of course, but she carried the flag of the working class in the United States, in this country. And that's why it's very important for us to experience her, because she's a fantastic poet at the same time as an ideologically important figure. And her partner, through the years, is going to present something that's also related to future work. So I'm going to call up David Joseph. David?
Thank you. I think I'll read a poem. This was called Purple Magnolia. Purple magnolia, open and languish, their waxen petals budding out of a transparent cylindrical vase sprouting off of an unvarnished wooden spool. Purple gladiolas hang in the tubular earthen-colored ceramic Japanese vase hanging on the wall between windows. Purple gladiolas rise in the kitchen on the bookshelf next to art of the Soviet Revolution. Your bed with the drawers underneath, so much hidden treasure down below. Your grandmother's flowered afghan on top, your nautical blue and white striped comforter coverlet. Your big red rose pillowcases, your little cream support pillows. Remembering how we made love last night, how you let me kiss you, how I accidentally scratched you, how it hurt down there, how you let me enter you, plunging into your depth, how I could feel your contractions, how you finished me off inside yourself whenever I had to let go of everything. Got a book coming up, What Makes Us Human. It's called, and it's with C.C. Marimbo Press, and I wrote a preface. Carol Tarlin never published any books during her lifetime, but neither did Einstein or Jesus. She enjoyed compiling 3 chapbooks, though, for friends: Letter from an English Prison, Trailer Trash Later, White Trash, and Fire. This volume, What Makes Us Human, is a re-editing for publication of Fire, with some later previously uncollected work added. This, the last of a dozen or so of what are mostly previously unedited chapbooks, is the first to see the light of day, thanks to C.C. Marimbo in Berkeley, California. Not that she was uninterested in publishing, but Carol was busy spending time with her grandchildren and feeding hungry people, and I should mention that she spent some nights in jail for committing the heinous crime feeding hungry people in San Francisco public parks with the Food Not Bombs group. When Carol died in 2004, one famous North Beach, San Francisco poet said that it had been many years since there had been such an outpouring on the passing of a North Beach poet. Not since Bob Kaufman in 1986. Like Kaufman's, Carol's work evinces no time for the snug and smug. The genius of her work is in the way it empowers the reader. You are in on the joke, as in today, for example. You are with her in the adventure of creating a new and better and more fun world through collective action. Carol's poetry cries out fire in a crowded poetry reading. Her poem Fire reduced hardcore South Korean unionists to tears when she read it to them. They were deeply moved that an American woman cared about the martyr John Il. Dear reader, you are in for a treat, not unlike those for which Carol was arrested in San Francisco public parks. Reading these poems, then, is an experience, both collaborative and subversive, against the dominant paradigm. Enjoy. What Carol wrote like 3 books of short stories, and one of them was very short, just 4 stories. It's a very short book called Letter from an English Prison. And there's a website, it's called Carol Tarlin Lives. Jeff Goldthorpe curates that website, and this book is on that site if you want to go there and read it. Maybe someday we'll read a new book just online. That's free to see that. She opens her book with a quote, "The question is very simple. Shall people be allowed to live the decent, fully human life which is now technically achievable, or shan't they? Shall the common man be pushed back into the mud, or shall he not? I myself believe, perhaps on insufficient grounds, that the common man will win his fight sooner or later. But I want it to be sooner and not later, sometime within the next 100 years, say, and not sometime within the next 10,000 years. George Orwell, looking back on Spain, 1943. And this is the story that opens that book. It's called Prisoner Number 25. The arsonist sings in her cell. It's inspired by the writings of Tomo Yamashiro, who was a unionist imprisoned in Japan during World War II. The arsonist sang in her cell. The guard at the door wore a black cape, its hem edged in snow. The prisoner saw snowflakes in his hair and imagined stars on the ceiling of her windowless room. The guard called to her, "Prisoner number 72, do you have a lover?" "Ah, yes," she replied. "Many." "How many?" the guard asked. She stretched out her hands. "See my fingers? That many." "Name them," he demanded, but the woman only laughed and continued her song. Prisoner number 25 sewed in her cell quilted uniforms for an imperialist army and waited for letters from her husband, imprisoned hundreds of miles from her cold, aching fingers. To evade the censors, he wrote in code, "I have planted seeds in the mountain snow," meant that he had spoken to the convicts, taught them the names of stars, told them of the unity of the constellations. Once, when she had worked in a factory, he had asked, "Why do the women stand at their machines and even in the heat of the day, talk of their children, their lovers, poems they will never write. Why hasn't poverty silenced them? She knew the reason, but lacked the words to answer. Teach me your language, she said. When war came, the militia took her away because she was married to a man who called her comrade. Tomorrow, 2 guards will bind a white silk band over prisoner number 72's eyes, tie 2 slender cords around her throat, and lead her to a gallows. They will command her to sit on the floor of newly cut timber. They will stand at each side, the ends of the cords stretched tight in their hands. The warden will nod slightly, and the executioners will pull. I can see snow and stars, the arsonist will sing, and fire. Only prisoner number 25 will hear her song. From inside her red kimono sleeve, number 25 takes pen and paper. Dearest husband, she writes, remember the question you asked? Why do women sing when their lovers perish in the Manchurian snow or are stifling Indonesian jungles, when their sons die of dysentery and their daughters are sold as prostitutes? I know the answer, but the censor will blacken my words, just as my father blackened my eyes before I ran away to you. Tomorrow an arsonist dies. The factory where she wired munitions for the emperor's army is now ashes and rubble. Tomorrow I will bathe in cold water, which will run down my back in joyous waves. I will remember our wedding day, your hands on my bruised and naked face, and I will sing the arsonist's song. Her music will light your cell. We are singing, husband, in unison. We are singing. Can you hear? Listen, comrade. Burn, we sing. Burn, burn.